You can use the perfect lure, make the perfect cast, and still not catch a single bass. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the environment isn't right. Water temperature, clarity, wind, and current control where bass live, how they move, and whether they feed at all. In this video, we're breaking down the environmental science behind bass fishing, so you can stop guessing where fish might be and start predicting where they will be. Welcome back to the Advanced Bass Fishing Playbook. In Part 1, we explored the differences between largemouth and smallmouth bass. In Part 2, we broke down how bass detect prey and what triggers them to strike. Now we're focusing on the environment itself, because bass behavior is controlled less by time and more by conditions. Understanding these environmental factors allows you to locate fish faster, choose the right lures, and fish with a clear plan instead of random casts. Section 1. Why environmental factors matter. Bass are cold-blooded fish. This means their body temperature, metabolism, and activity levels are directly controlled by the surrounding water. Unlike mammals, they cannot regulate their internal temperature. As a result, their feeding activity, movement patterns, and even their strike aggression change depending on the environment. 4 factors influence bass behavior more than anything else. Water temperature, water clarity, wind, current, and oxygen. These factors interact constantly, creating changing conditions throughout the day and across the seasons. Section 2. Water temperature, the master variable. Water temperature is the single most important factor affecting bass behavior. It controls metabolism, digestion speed, energy levels, spawning cycles. As water warms, bass become more active and require more food. As water cools, their metabolism slows and they conserve energy. Largemouth bass are most active between approximately 65 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Smallmouth bass tend to prefer slightly cooler water, often remaining active in the low 60s. Outside of these ranges, bass may still feed, but their activity levels change dramatically. Section 3. Cold water behavior. When water temperatures drop below about 55 degrees, bass enter a low energy state. They often move to deeper water where temperatures remain more stable and avoid chasing prey long distances. In cold conditions, bass prefer slow-moving lures, bottom-oriented presentations, smaller, more subtle profiles. Their strike zone becomes smaller, meaning your lure must be presented very close to the fish to trigger a bite. This is why winter fishing often requires patience and slow, methodical presentations. Section 4. Warm water and summer behavior. As water warms above 60 degrees, bass metabolism increases. They digest food faster and need to feed more frequently. However, extremely warm water introduces another problem. Oxygen levels begin to drop, especially in still lakes. When temperatures rise above the mid-80s, bass often move deeper, seek shade, feed during early morning and late evening. In these conditions, locating areas with cooler water or increased oxygen, such as deeper structure, vegetation, or wind-blown shorelines, becomes critical. Section 5. Water clarity. How bass see the world. Water clarity determines how far bass can see and how they rely on their senses. In clear water, bass can visually inspect lures from greater distances. This makes them more cautious and selective. In stained or muddy water, bass rely more heavily on vibration and movement rather than sight. Clear water fishing often requires natural lure colors, subtle presentations, longer casting distances to avoid spooking fish. Muddy water fishing, on the other hand, benefits from high contrast colors, lures that produce vibration, fishing closer to cover where bass can trap prey. Section 6. Light penetration and bass positioning. Light penetration changes with water clarity and sunlight conditions. Bright sunlight pushes bass deeper or into heavy cover where they feel secure. Cloudy conditions reduce light penetration, allowing bass to move into shallower water and feed more actively. This is why overcast days are often considered some of the best fishing conditions. Bass feel less exposed and are more willing to chase prey. Section 7. Wind, the most underrated factor. Many anglers avoid fishing in windy conditions, but wind often improves bass fishing. Wind creates surface disturbance and generates underwater currents. These currents move plankton and bait fish, concentrating them along wind-blown shorelines. Bass follow this food movement and often position themselves to ambush prey, being pushed towards structure or shallow areas. Wind also reduces water clarity and breaks up surface reflections, making bass feel less exposed to predators. As a result, windy conditions frequently produce more aggressive feeding behavior. Section 8. Current and river behavior. In rivers and moving water systems, current becomes the dominant environmental factor. Bass must balance two needs: conserving energy, intercepting food, drifting downstream. They often position themselves in areas where current is reduced, but food still passes by. These areas include behind rocks, along current seams, near eddies and slack water. Smallmouth bass are especially adapted to current environments and often thrive in rivers where they can use structure to rest while feeding. Understanding how current shapes fish positioning is critical for successful river fishing. Section 9. Oxygen and the thermocline. During summer, many lakes develop a thermocline, a layer of water where temperature changes rapidly with depth. Below this layer, oxygen levels often drop significantly, making it difficult for bass and baitfish to survive. As a result, fish concentrate above the thermocline, often within a narrow depth range. Anglers who locate this depth zone can dramatically increase their success because they are fishing where both predator and prey are concentrated. Electronics are often used to detect this layer and identify where fish are suspended relative to it. Section 10. Combining environmental factors. In real fishing situations, these factors don't act alone, they interact. For example, wind can improve oxygen levels in warm water. Cloud cover can make clear water less risky for bass. Current can position baitfish along structure. Advanced anglers constantly evaluate how these conditions combine to influence bass behavior. Instead of asking, "Where are the fish today?" they ask, "What conditions are present, and where would a bass position itself under these conditions?" Section 11. Applying environmental knowledge on the water. When you begin to think in environmental terms, your fishing strategy changes. You start selecting fishing areas based on temperature zones, wind direction, water clarity, current flow. This allows you to eliminate large portions of unproductive water and focus on high-probability locations. Over time, you begin to recognize repeating patterns, such as base positioning on wind-blown points during summer or holding deep during cold fronts. This is one of the key differences between casual anglers and consistently successful ones. Now that you understand how environmental conditions influence bass behavior, the next step is learning how these factors shape bass movement throughout the year. In Part 4, we'll break down seasonal base patterns, covering winter, pre-spawn, spawn, summer, and fall, so you can predict where bass will be in every season. Because when you combine environmental knowledge with seasonal movement patterns, you gain the ability to locate bass almost anywhere you fish. Subscribe to continue the Advanced Bass Fishing Playbook series and learn how to turn environmental conditions into a consistent fishing advantage. For the full in-depth guide, visit Starship Marine Wikipedia at www.starshipmarine.com. You can also find the link in our bio. See you in the next video, and tight lines.